I manage a marketing firm in Sydney, and last month we hired an American contractor named Brad for a 6-month project. His first day was a Monday. He showed up at 7:30 in the morning. Our office opens at 9. He sat in the lobby for 90 minutes, confused why the doors were locked. When I arrived, he explained he wanted to make a good impression by being early. I told him Australians don't do that. He said, in America, if you're not 30 minutes early, you're late. I explained that, in Australia, if you're 30 minutes early, you're weird, and we're not paying you for that time. You're already seeing why I tell these stories. They're not about countries. They're about cultures colliding in real time. I track this full-time so you don't have to. If decoding global behavior like this clicks with you, you're exactly where you should be. Just stay. By his second week, Brad had already tried to schedule 3 meetings after 5 p.m. Nobody came. He sent a strongly worded email about commitment and going the extra mile. My Australian team replied with a single sentence. We have lives. Brad responded with a PowerPoint presentation titled The Correlation Between After Hours, Availability and Career Success. He presented it to an empty conference room because everyone had left at 5:15. The breaking point came when he suggested we cancel our Friday afternoon drinks, tradition to finish a project that wasn't due for 2 weeks. He said it showed we weren't serious about success. One of my designers told him that Australians work to live, not live to work. Brad said that's why Australia doesn't have more Fortune 500 companies. The designer said that's why Americans don't have 4 weeks mandatory annual leave. And that was just his first month. I work at a tech startup in Melbourne, and we brought in an American consultant named Jennifer to optimize our workflow. She arrived with a laptop covered in motivational stickers. One said, "Sleep is for the weak." Another said, "Hustle harder." She asked why our kitchen didn't have a coffee machine that takes credit cards for speed. I told her our coffee is free. She looked genuinely confused and asked what the catch was. Jennifer scheduled our first meeting for 6:30 a.m. She called it a power breakfast strategy session. Only 2 people showed up, and they both looked angry. She started her presentation about maximizing productivity by eliminating dead time. Her examples of dead time included lunch breaks longer than 20 minutes, bathroom breaks, and chatting with co-workers. She suggested we install productivity tracking software that monitors keyboard activity. Our CTO asked if she was joking. She wasn't joking. She presented data showing American workers average 47 hours per week versus Australia's 36. She said this explained America's higher GDP per capita. Our finance manager pointed out that Australia ranks higher in quality of life, happiness, and work-life balance. Jennifer said those are soft metrics that don't translate to quarterly earnings. She suggested we gamify overtime with prizes. The prize for most hours worked would be a gift card. Nobody wanted it. This is where most people stop at the punchline. But this channel isn't about the absurdity. It's about the system that produces it. If you caught that difference, you already think like the people who subscribe here. By week 3, Jennifer was sending emails at 11 p.m. and getting annoyed that nobody responded until the next morning. She accused the team of not being team players. She scheduled a mandatory workshop on maintaining competitive edge through aggressive time management. The workshop was scheduled for Saturday. On the sign-up sheet, someone had written "absolutely not" in every slot. Jennifer reported this to HR as insubordination. HR told her weekends are protected by Australian employment law. She asked if there were any legal loopholes. There weren't. Her final suggestion was removing our relaxation room because it sent the wrong message about priorities. The relaxation room had beanbags, a PlayStation, and a coffee station. She said it encouraged laziness. She proposed converting it into a hustle hub with standing desks and motivational posters. She presented this idea during our monthly all-hands meeting. The room went silent. Our CEO thanked her for her input and said we'd be ending her contract early. Jennifer asked why. He said we hired her to optimize our workflow, not destroy our culture. She left saying Australian companies would never compete globally with this attitude. We just posted record profits. I'm an HR coordinator in Brisbane, and we hired an American operations manager named Todd. During his onboarding, I explained he had 4 weeks annual leave, 10 days personal leave, and 13 public holidays. He asked what the catch was. I said there's no catch. That's Australian law. He asked if unused leave rolls over. I said yes, indefinitely. He stared at me like I'd told him money grows on trees. Todd's first month, he didn't take a single day off. Second month, same thing. I reminded him he should take leave. He said he was saving it for emergencies. I explained that's what personal leave is for. He said in America, taking vacation makes you look uncommitted. I told him in Australia, not taking vacation makes you look unstable. He asked if that was in the employee handbook. I showed him the section where it literally says, managers must ensure staff take adequate leave. Month 4, Todd started making comments about other employees taking leave. A designer took 2 weeks off to visit family in Perth. Todd said loudly in the break room that he couldn't imagine abandoning the team for half a month. The designer heard him. She explained she'd given 6 weeks' notice and had covered all her work. Todd said 6 weeks' notice just meant the company had to plan around her absence longer. She pointed out that planning around leave is literally part of his job as operations manager. The situation peaked when our accountant requested 3 weeks off for her wedding and honeymoon. Todd denied it. She escalated to our director. The director approved it immediately and asked Todd why he thought he could deny legal leave entitlements. Todd explained that 3 consecutive weeks would disrupt operational flow. The director explained that's why we have teams, not individual silos. Todd suggested the accountant take her honeymoon in smaller chunks spread throughout the year. The accountant told him that defeated the entire purpose of a honeymoon. Todd said, in America, people honeymoon over long weekends to stay productive. The director told him this is Australia and approved the leave. Todd never took his own leave. By month 11, he had 43 days banked. I was legally required to force him to take at least 2 weeks. He fought it. He said his projects couldn't survive without him. I explained that if the company can't function without one person for 2 weeks, we have a structural problem. He reluctantly took the leave. While he was gone, everything ran smoothly. When he returned, he seemed genuinely shaken that the office hadn't collapsed. He asked how we managed. We told him we just did our jobs like normal. He resigned 2 months later, saying he needed to work somewhere that valued dedication. We celebrated his departure with an extra long lunch break. I work reception at a medical clinic in Adelaide, and we had an American pharmaceutical rep named Stephanie visit weekly. She always looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, coffee cup permanently attached to her hand. One Tuesday, she arrived clearly unwell, sniffling, coughing, pale. She tried to push through her presentation. I stopped her and suggested she go home sick. She laughed and said she had 4 more clinics to visit that day. I explained that coming to a medical clinic while visibly sick was particularly bad judgment. She said she didn't have sick days left. I asked how that was possible in April. She explained her company gave 5 sick days per year, and she'd used 3 for an actual illness and 2 for mental health days. I said that sounded illegal. She said that's standard in America. I told her Australian full-time workers get 10 sick days minimum. She didn't believe me. She pulled up her company policy on her phone to prove 5 days was normal. I pulled up Australian employment law on our computer. Stephanie went quiet. She asked if the 10 days rolled over. I said they do. She calculated out loud that she could have banked 50 sick days by now if she'd worked 5 years in Australia. She looked like she might cry. She asked what Australians do with 10 sick days. I said we use them when we're sick, so we don't infect entire offices. She said in American corporate culture, using all your sick days makes you look weak. I said in Australian culture, coming to work sick makes you look inconsiderate. She asked if Australian doctors write sick notes. I explained yes, if you're off more than 2 consecutive days. She seemed relieved by this policy because it proved sickness was legitimate. I told her most Australian employers don't question sick leave because they trust their employees. She said American companies assume sick leave is mostly fake. I asked why American companies hire people they don't trust. She had no answer. The doctor she was supposed to meet refused to see her while she was sick. He told her through the door to go home and reschedule. She tried to explain she'd driven 40 minutes. He said that was her choice and he wasn't risking his patient's health. She asked if she could wait in her car and present through the window. He said no. She left crying, not from illness, but from the stress of missing a meeting while being actively unwell. 2 months later, Stephanie transferred to her company's Sydney office. She said she couldn't go back to American leave policies after seeing how Australians worked. She sent our clinic a thank you card for showing her that being sick didn't make you dispensable. I own a cafe in Perth, and last summer an American couple came in during lunch rush. They ordered, ate quickly, and stood up to leave within 22 minutes. I asked if something was wrong with the food. They said no, everything was great, but they had to get back to work. I asked where they worked. They said they were on vacation from San Diego. I was confused. They explained they were remote working during their Australian trip to save their vacation days. I asked why they'd fly 16 hours to Australia just to work from cafes. They said their company only gave 10 days vacation per year, and they needed to save days for emergencies. I explained that their logic meant they weren't actually on vacation. They said this was their compromise for seeing the world while staying employed. They had 3 more cafes to visit that afternoon for variety. While on video calls, the wife pulled out her laptop and started a Zoom meeting right there at the table. The husband apologized and said she had to join this meeting or lose a client. I pointed out our cafe had other customers waiting for tables. They offered to buy another coffee if they could stay for the hour-long meeting. I said no. They asked if Australian cafes didn't want business. I said Australian cafes want customers who actually experience Australia instead of treating it like a WeWork with koalas. They packed up, visibly annoyed. On their way out, the husband said, "In America, the customer is always right." I replied, "In Australia, the customer is on vacation and should act like it." They left a 2-star review saying my cafe wasn't business-friendly. An Australian local responded to the review, "It's a cafe, mate, not your office. Go to the beach." The really sad part was learning this wasn't unique. I've watched dozens of American tourists work through their Australian vacations, convinced that stepping away completely would cost them their careers. Meanwhile, my Australian staff take their full 4 weeks leave every year, come back refreshed, and somehow the cafe doesn't burn down while they're gone. And somewhere right now, another American is drafting emails on Bondi Beach, absolutely certain this is what work hard, play hard means, while the Australian next to them is doing neither and living a better life because of it. I don't chase outrage. I map behavior. Every week, I unpack how culture programs us without us noticing. Subscribing doesn't help me. It helps you catch the next pattern before you repeat it.